have been noticing since our first, or I can't remember, it was our second workshop in November, we've been trying to listen to the topics that you're interested in learning about. And we've had this moving target because of the general plan update. Is it going to happen? Is it going to not? Oh, no, it's not. Okay, well, how about the outreach? Nope, that's not going to happen either. And so we're trying to adapt and evolve as new information becomes available. And so I've been working on a speaker series or a lineup of folks on topics that I know we've mentioned before. So I think in our November or December workshop, we looked at open data. And I think Arnold Joy, right, was the one that brought that up, saying, get the information out there. An example that's come up in our meetings has been about transportation and traffic studies. And if you don't know what the baseline conditions are, how do you know what's been approved actually is being counted in, or how are those developments actually moving forward in terms of the numbers, and did they meet their mitigation measures? How is all this fitting together? And so having that information publicly available is really important. So that's kind of why we leapt into this topic. So I get to introduce Chris Carter, and he has worked for the city of Anaheim for the last 18 years. He too is a Cal State Fullerton grad. We apparently just barely overlapped when I was in my master's program and he was getting his bachelor's. But the city of Anaheim has done a really good job getting information out there. And we're going to compare and contrast what Newport has done with what Anaheim has done. And he'll have a presentation with links and all sorts of great information. But think about, so this is your job while you're listening, think about what you'd like to see in Newport Beach or what you found in Anaheim that would be helpful for us to have here. I think the overall premise behind open data in government is that government should be more open, funny how that works, and accountable to the public. So the process for Anaheim to develop it, I'm sure Chris is going to cover it, was really staff driven. So we have an opportunity here, if we don't think what's happening in Newport Beach with open data, and Jim's going to give us a little overview, let's make some recommendations. Let's tell them what we're interested in hearing. So with that, I will hand it over to Chris to come in and his presentation.
Okay, is that the mouse for this too? Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much for letting me come in here today and talk to you about open data in Anaheim. So I think open data has a lot of potential. It isn't always used correctly. So the story I'm going to tell you today is what we've done with open data in Anaheim, what did and did not work, and where we're going to take that in the future. Like Melanie said, I think you'll get some good ideas for your own city, your own community here. Can anybody hear okay? Okay. So some quick facts about Anaheim. I'm sure you've all been there before, you know where we are, but some of these are a little shocking when you hear them for the first time. So we're the 10th largest city in California right now, 360,000 people. We surpassed Santa Ana in the 2010 census. We cover 50 square miles, which is just behind Irvine is in land area in the county. We have a $1.7 billion with a B annual budget because of our utilities, so there's a lot of money flowing through City Hall. And due to the Anaheim Resort, Disneyland, Angel Stadium, Honda Center, we have over 25 million visitors annually, which is just incredible when you think about that many people coming through. The population, nighttime population 360,000, but 25 million a year coming through and visiting. It's just incredible. And 160 hotels, and there's a lot of hotel tax along with that too, of course. So just in City Hall, we have over 2,000 employees. That doesn't even count all the part-time labor we have in the convention center, so there's probably another 1,000 there too. We have 13 total departments. We have our own police and fire department, public utilities. And why am I telling you all this? Because that equals a ton of data. We have a lot of data in City Hall, and we need to make more of that available to the public to access. Right now we get at least 1,500 public records requests per year, and that's everyone's right to submit, but they take a lot of staff time to pull that data too. So how did it all start, our open data initiative? The 2014 State of the City address, our mayor, Tom Tate, announced an open data initiative, and he wanted to make data available to keep watchdogs on City Hall, increase transparency, of course, and also he had an idea that businesses would take this data and develop unique applications or ways to use that. So the funny thing is we didn't have any heads up on this as city staff. It just kind of got dumped on our lap. So we had to We hadn't even really looked at it before, but that's okay. So we looked at 3 options. Company called Junar was the least expensive. Then there's Socrata, which is kind of middle ground, had a lot more features but more money. And then we looked at building an in-house solution like City of Riverside. We determined with our short time frame we couldn't pull that off, so we ended up with Junar, and I'll go into the details of that later. So the first question is, what do we put out there, right? Because we have, again, way too much data. What do we decide to put on our site? So we as city staff went through our website and frequently asked questions, and we have something called Anaheim Anytime where citizens can send in questions to ask. So we have all those logged. We generally know what people are asking of us. So we went through all that, came up with 30 data sets, I think. And then we went to each department and asked them to provide what they thought was interesting. So notice neither of these included the community at all, and that's probably not a good thing. So we have only 45 data sets right now, which is just scratching the surface of what we have citywide. That does include some things that are interesting, like crime data, business permits, and building permits. And we did all this in just a little over 6 months, from reviewing what to put up there, buying a product, and standing it up. But it has drawbacks too, which I'll get into. So here's our current site. If we can do a live demo here, let's see if this will open up. It looks pretty, I'll say that, but I'm going to be openly critical of this because it is my site, and I think some things were not done very well on this. So first off, average number of electrical meters. Who cares? Why is this up here? I still will have to find a use case for this. So somebody in the utilities department thought, hey, this is interesting. This is my area. I'm going to put this up here. But these kind of things just don't make sense to me. Let's go back here to neighborhoods. And not that everything is bad. There are some useful ones on here. Affordable housing, the percentage that are for family or senior or special needs might be interesting to people. Code enforcement violations, you actually can get all the addresses of where violations have been sent in. However, and this is where you need to look at your own city's open data site, yes, it has the addresses, it has a description, but there's no categories as far as was this generally for trash cans or for graffiti or something else. So without that, to me, it's kind of useless, because how do you symbolize this? How do you put this in a chart and make any sense? You're basically just looking at a table of data. So again, I'm being overly critical of ours just so you can get some ideas when you look at your own, what you should expect from City Hall. Yeah, so there's some pretty charts. The types of schools we have, it's just not that useful to me. So anyways, let's get back to the presentation. Has anybody not heard of GIS before? Okay, everyone's somewhat familiar with it. So this is my passion. I'm the GIS manager for Anaheim. Just a little background of what we do. We've had GIS in Anaheim for over 20 years. We have 7 full-time and 4 part-time positions that all we do is GIS. We maintain all the data for this city, which is a very large department for a city of our size. We serve every department in the city. We have over 600 layers in our GIS. So we have a separate open data site just for GIS because spatial data usually is treated a little differently than tabular data. We use Esri's open data template. I'll show you that in a second. We launched it about a year after the main open data site, and we have some of our most commonly requested data sets in there, like parcels, streets, and parks. But remember, I said we have 600 total. We only have 47 in there now, so we really need to ramp that up. There's some things we can't put in there. We can't put our utility data in there. That's sensitive information. Any medical calls from the fire department we can't list. So here's how our GIS site looks, and I'll show you contrasting to how the other open data site works. So you can search by keyword, or you can just go by category. So if we go to recreation here, and then go to parks, so you can see it symbolizes them on the maps, but you can also just look at the raw data. So this is what I'm talking about as far as having more information in here. If you want to make an application that shows which parks have restrooms and which don't, now you have access to the data to do that. That other list just had park names and addresses. Well, that's not very useful. So we're trying to push it towards being more complete data sets that we're showing out here. So for each of these, you can download it as a spreadsheet or a KML for Google Earth or a shapefile. So we're trying to make everything as available as possible to the user. So that's the difference between the city's open data site and the GIS open data. And yes, it is confusing having two. So now that we've done all this and stood it all up, is it useful? And I wish I could say that it's gone like gangbusters and we're getting thousands of hits a day, but I can't say that because in some ways it's been kind of a failure. We get very little traffic, maybe a couple hundred hits a year, which compared to our website is nothing. So no one's using this. Does that mean there's no interest? I hope not. I think there's interest out there. I think we're just not doing it right because, again, this was staff-driven, as Melanie said. We didn't do this correctly, and I'm guessing Newport Beach and a lot of other cities have done the same thing. We've gotten very little feedback from users. Yes, you can go on the open data site. You can send us an email. I think we've gotten 2 requests for other data that we didn't have up there. So either people don't know about it, or maybe they're hesitant to request different things. I'm not really sure. That's why I'm here to have this discussion. We had big hopes that would save a lot of staff time. Again, those 1,500 public records requests that come in takes a lot of time. Even if 10% were alleviated by the open data site, that would be a huge drop. But we don't really know, are people using this instead of calling us? Are they doing both? It's really hard to say. So some of the lessons that we've learned, again, we made all these decisions to put up there based on city staff, which is probably not the right way to do it. Make sure data can stand on its own. Again, some of those data sets that were put in there, yes, we checked off the box that we put in the list of parks, but without the complete picture of all the data, it doesn't make sense to put it up there. So let's do it right or let's not do it at all. You get what you pay for. The product we chose is called Junar. I think it's $18,000 a year. Compared to Socrata, the next level up, which is probably 65. We should have gone for the 65,000 version because I think we probably would get more hits because it's easier to use, it makes more sense, and it would link back to our databases directly. And then we never sat down. We rushed this out in 6 months. We never thought, how do we determine if this is successful? And how do we say, yes, this is working, or no, it's not? Do we measure mouse clicks? Do we measure downloads? Or do we actually go to community meetings like this and ask and show people this is what we have and ask for more feedback that way? So I think that's what we need to change in Anaheim. And I always say this, we kind of just turned the fire hose on, opened it up, and let everyone deal with it. And clearly that's not working. And other cities that I've talked to have seen the same thing. So one thing I'm going to propose here today is instead of just dumping all this data on a site and making it the user's problem to figure out, what we're trying now is making targeted applications that serve a specific use while also giving you all the data. But this gives you a starting point to at least start playing with this. And I know Newport Beach has some of these same topics on their website. But this has been hugely popular. We call it Andy's Map because of Andy Anaheim is an old what do you call it? It's something from when Anaheim first was formed. It's an old, I can't think of the word right now. But so you can come in here, and the idea is if you're exploring, driving, walking around the city, you can bring this app up. It works very well on your smartphone or tablet, and you might see some construction going on. There's fences, and you're wondering what's going to go up there, right? You can come in here because it will geolocate based on your location, and it gives you a nice rendering of what it's going to be, has a description, and most importantly, has an email and a phone number if you want to talk to the planner and ask them questions about this. If there's any upcoming meetings, it lists those. If there's a planning commission meeting coming up to talk about that. So this has been hugely popular. We get probably 5 or 6 times the amount of hits on this one application as our whole open data site does, even though it has all those other things on there. And the best part about this app is we don't have to do anything as staff. It links right to our database. As soon as we take in a new project, it shows up on here. As soon as we close a project, it marks as completed. So people love this, and again, to me, this is still open data. It's getting the information out there. We're looking to add in a way to view the table and download the data, so if you want to just bring this into a spreadsheet and play with it, you can do that as well. So that's the first example. The other one is road closures. Oh, darn it. Okay, sorry about that. That's what happens when you do live demos sometimes. So the idea is, and it's a really small screenshot, we as a city, we know where we're doing construction. We've approved lanes to be closed. We know which days they're going to be doing construction and which times. So we're doing a pilot in the Anaheim Resort and Platinum Triangle where city staff is creating lines and putting all that information in there. So now you can not only see where this construction is happening, but we share this data live, real time with Waze, which means that traffic is now being routed around in Google Maps and Waze. So again, a great example of open data, not necessarily looking at the raw data, but us just being transparent and sharing this with the rest of the world. So does that kind of pique your interest a little bit as far as where we're going with this, I hope? So next steps, where are we going next? We need to combine our two websites. It's confusing for the users to have to go to two different ones. And again, GIS is my passion. Most of our data has a spatial component to it. Business licenses have locations, so let's just put it all on the GIS Open Data site and make it available there, and I think it's a little nicer to use too. So we're working on that in the next few months. We need to get out there, we need to talk to community groups like this, we need to get feedback from you and see what is it you're looking for, what could we be doing better. Again, going to community meetings and district meetings and just engaging the community better, because I think we've done a really poor job of that, and I'm the first one to admit that, because we just did it too quickly in a lot of ways. So that's my presentation. Any questions? Yes?
Was your expectation that you would come away with not having to spend so much time on the Public Records Act information that people request?
Not,
That would be tricky, I think.
well, not mine specifically. There are some people who wanted that because they spend a good deal of their day doing that.
I think they'd want it, but it'd be hard to do. I would
Yeah, it is.
pick and choose.
I'm just a fan of transparency. This data belongs to the community members of Anaheim. Let's get it out there and put it in their hands. They're paying for it with their tax dollars. So we don't own this. We don't have a lock on this. In my mind, we should share everything we can that's not sensitive information.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
I think she's-
So, thank you, Chris, that was really good. I didn't expect that. How does your supervisor feel about how you feel about this? I mean, is this like,
No, I think actually, to be honest, I think that's part of the reason I am in the position I'm in, because I'm a little blunt sometimes and I'm honest about things.
so it's work in progress still?
Mhm.
It's still working, so you're working to do those things?
Oh, yes.
Community engagement and so on and so forth?
Absolutely, yeah.
So to Nancy's question about the public records request, I want to test my understanding. Are you saying that if the data were out there and available, there wouldn't be as many requests because they would just go out there and get the data?
I think so.
Is that what
yes.
you're saying then?
Yes.
Okay.
And,
That's a lofty goal. Don't you think? I think it's great though.
well,
It'd be hard to do, I think.
it would be hard, but at the same time, I don't remember, we have a week or two to get back on these public records requests. If you could do it yourself on a computer on a Sunday night, that's better for everyone, right? So yes, there are some things we can't do everything through there, but if we could do, again, even just 10%, that's better where we are now.
So you could like group them in categories or something and then
Again,
you'd use. Okay.
All this data is in a database in City Hall. There's no reason why we can't put it out there. It's just a matter of doing it.
Thank you.
What about
Think-
data,
No, go ahead.
what about data for management decision-making, or making departments more efficient, or making, that sort of thing? Seeing if you're following the general plan.
Yeah, I was thinking that earlier because when that topic came up. That is definitely tougher. Again, you can do a public records request and get all the staff files that are being generated for a project. I don't know if that stuff's ever going to be put on an open data site because it's working documents. It'd be a little tougher.
How do your managers get information to make things more efficient, or change a department, or?
I think it varies from project to project. Sometimes we'll bring consultants in to do reviews. Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't have a good answer to that, but something to keep in mind. I'll note that down.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things. One, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, is there any indication moving towards some kind of training for the citizenry? We're making, like you asked people in here, how many people are familiar with GIS, but if you
Mhm.
phrase the question, how many people know how to build layers and burrow down and so on? You might have got a few hands, there's different things as far as the usage. So part of the aspect of usage is how to do it. And that kind of brings me to the second thing, was the last thing, Andy's is an app. right?
It's a website.
But is it an app? I mean,
No,
like, you know, you download an app?
no,
on your
you don't
phone?
download it, you
Oh,
just
okay.
go to the website.
Okay, because I assume, are you familiar with Citizenville?
No,
Okay, I
That-
recommend it. Anyway,
Okay.
the
It's a
book called Citizenville. Anyway,
oh, I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, okay, but anyway, in that book, he mentions about as you open data and make it available, then the app people who build apps, then can build apps as far as accessing the data. It's kind of
Right.
like, if you open up the opportunity, people will build things to use it.
Right.
So that's why I thought that might have been an app. And then the other thing is that we have in our city, we have, kind of blanking, Airbnbs, you know.
Yeah,
that-
short-term rentals.
Yeah, and you probably do too.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that gets a lot of hits and a lot of people are really interested in is our city has where they are, because they have to get permits.
Yep.
And that's the thing that has been very popular. I mean, a lot of people have gone out and said, oh, I didn't know, you know, what's this
Yes.
house down in the neighborhood? So part of that was, you talked about the fire hose in a negative way, which I agree. Part of it is trying to identify what are the things that are gonna be, I call it crisis driven or interest driven. You know,
Mhm.
what is the public? There's probably a lot of really esoteric data that it's like, you know, but then there's other things like, you know, the sober living homes or
Right.
rentals or stuff like that, that people are really anxious about. So
Mhm.
I applaud you for looking at it that way, and that's one of the things I wanna encourage our city to take that approach too.
Yeah, we did exactly that. Short-term rentals became a hot topic. Our city council actually banned them in the city. But we saw that coming and we stood up an app right away to share that data with the rest of the community. So, yeah, we do that.
Did you say you only had 200 hits in a year on your site?
Oh, it's in the low hundreds. I don't know exactly. It's really, it's embarrassingly low. Yes. Yeah, for a city of our size.
There's gotta be a way to make people
There
aware
is,
of it.
and yeah, I think just making it more useful is gonna get us there.
User-friendly.
Yep. Yes.
Do you have like a self-mastery video that citizens could go to where they are directed to the site and how to use it?
No, I was thinking that earlier. We were talking about, you mentioned training the communities.
Yeah, or maybe just an
Yeah.
app that they can click onto. And when citizens send in questions, you said they can send in questions.
Mhm.
Can they see all the other questions that citizens have sent in? And are they by date or category?
You know, I've been trying to convince our PIO that that's how it should work, but they don't agree with me.
They're not
So
ready to open up yet.
I think we're getting there. It's just baby steps as we go. Because I think that's valuable to see.
Mhm.
If 10 other people have already reported this pothole, I'm not going to send it in again because they got the message by now.
Yeah.
So
You know, I
save myself the
direct them to
time.
a group or a chat room where they're talking
Yeah.
to all of the others who have the same interest. Did you say that utilities information like data or about money is not covered?
Mm.
Because Anaheim has where residents can send back to the central source all the extra energy that they don't need,
Right.
right?
No, it's not. Money is fine. It's the location of where our utilities are. We don't share that because
Oh,
of terrorism
for
concerns.
hacking,
Yeah.
like Atlanta.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, do you get cooperation from the assessor so we can go to your site and find out who is the registered owner of any given property? And
Get-
and if not, is there something there that tells you you can't get it, or you just get frustrated because you look and can't find it?
That is a good question. We get that a lot. So unfortunately, we purchase, like every other city in Orange County, we purchase the tax roll data from the county every year, and we are prohibited from sharing that with a non-city employee. I don't understand why, but I have to sign that form myself, so we cannot put it on there. But that's a good point. We should put on there, if you want property owner information, contact the county, because we cannot give it out.
And they say come up to the office and ask for it.
Right, they won't tell you over the phone either. It's frustrating dealing with them, I will agree. Yes?
Is there a group of activists that's concerned about saving what's left of anything natural in Anaheim that isn't concrete covered?
We have a parks committee. It's limited because we don't have that much open space. We have the Deer Canyon Preserve, which is pretty big in the hills. And of course, it was a really good thing, the big development Mountain Park, which is now part of a state, I think it's a state park, so it's never going to be developed, OC Park. So it's really good that got preserved, but it's not as strong, there's no groups like this that I'm aware of. So. Yeah. Well, we have a strong group that are concerned about like Mills Act properties, historic properties, but not open space so much. So.
Not open space?
Mm-mm.
Well, I'll just clarify, because I wear a lot of hats. Hills for Everyone is my mom's organization, created Chino Hills State Park. Chino Hills State Park is in the city of Anaheim as well, and so we worked with Anaheim back in the late 90s to preserve Coal Canyon under the 91 freeway. So, but because most of the land in that geography has been saved through dedications from Bren, to the Nature Conservancy with easements, or the Mountain Park property, there's not a whole lot left within the city to do anything with. So that's fantastic, yeah. It's a good problem to have.
So what are your hot button issues? Oh, I'm sorry.
Andy,
Take her question first.
Yes.
My problem with Newport's website is it's not very searchable. You have to put in the exact words, and if you don't put in the exact words, you don't get a response.
Right.
At the library, we used to have a card catalog, and if you looked at a word, it would say, see also.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought those see also comments, which were handwritten in spidery handwriting by librarians,
Mm-hmm.
were really useful, because
Right.
it would lead you to where you might find the information
Yeah.
you want.
And that's a good point. And the technology exists. If you go to Google and search for something, it finds all kinds of related things. So you just need to push the city of Newport Beach to implement something like that.
I have a question on development projects. So you brought up the Andy map. Do you house like the environmental impact reports, the planning commission staff reports, the city council minutes within that project, or is there some other place that people would have to go?
So that's the next step, right? We've been talking about making all those documents available through there. If you're already there, why not bring up the EIR?
Right, right. And the history of the
Yeah,
project.
hopefully in the next year we'll have some of that available through there. Yeah.
And on traffic, since I know that's a concern that folks have brought up here, any studies that have been done,
Yep.
are those publicly available?
Yeah, we're actually adding that one next week. We just did a traffic study from 2017. We just got that data. We're going to put it on our open data site so anyone can download, see the traffic volumes and view on a map.
For
So.
all of the city?
No, just the arterials.
The arterials,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Take the traffic study, for instance. Is there a place then you could just put in traffic study and come up with it wherever it is?
Yes, so on the GIS open data site, it's very search friendly. So as long as we put the right tags on there, just typing in traffic, you'll get a few matches. Traffic study
So
will
it
be
has
one
to
of
go
them.
to the GIS one. By the way, I thought your Andy's map was fabulous.
Oh,
I think
thank
that
you.
is terrific. They call it Andy's map.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm not real good with numbers, but if charts can be turned into graphs, then they make sense for me. Is there some way to, like, right-click on a chart and go, give me the graph of it, give me the visual instead of all this?
So when I showed you those the two levels, there's Junar, the cheap one, Socrata. The expensive one does that. Really cool stuff. But you get what you pay for, so yeah.
Well, you can actually, it's more work for you. You can download the data like into an Excel spreadsheet. And if you know how to use Excel, more than just putting things in. If you know how to use Excel, you can take columns of data and create graphs pretty easily, actually.
I would need your number.
But he
Pivot
did
tables
say
and-
you could download.
Right.
You can get the numbers and you get the charts. So you would export, and I assume you have an export, you would export that data into an Excel spreadsheet and then use the Excel spreadsheets tools to manipulate the data.
Right. And back to our mayor's original vision, he wants people to develop apps to do that for you. We're just putting the data out there so someone can consume it however they want.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
After everything else done. I was just heard recently that our city is getting ready to delete some data or some old stuff. And I'm wondering, do you ever take anything away, or does everything get put up, even if it's old?
Yeah, we keep everything. We
Keep
don't.
everything?
Yeah.
Because it seems like these days you don't have to actually physically, you have to scan it all in to do it, or how do you do it? How do you do it? You have a document.
In the GIS world, it's just in a database. We just keep adding more rows to there, and everything has a time date stamp on there, so it just gets pushed
So
back.
if you have a report that's this thick and it's back in the old days when it's printed,
Mhm.
Do you have somebody scan it in?
Yep,
and
we went through
you
that
just don't
process
Throw anything away?
10, 15 years ago, scanned everything into a document repository, and it's all available through there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
You know a city that does have a really dynamic website that's kind of intuitive?
City of LA is probably the best one I could think of around here. They have a site called GeoHub, where it's the same concept, lots of open data, and they have some really cool tools on there where you can kind of play with it and view it different ways. So check out GeoHub.
Does it get a lot of play in Los Angeles?
It does, yeah. Mayor Garcetti so sometimes mayors will propose a project and then never talk about it again. Our open data site. Mayor Garcetti's been a huge proponent of that. He loves GIS, he loves transparency. Not that our mayor doesn't, but Garcetti's made a point of promoting it every chance he gets. So lots of press conferences, and I think that goes a long way to getting the word out there.
Can you say more about your city manager? Because I'm surprised that this is not used more intensely internally. And the only way that can happen is when people in power and the people who run meetings, you know, say to people who put stuff together, you know, hey, you can get this on our great new system, so from now on, let's see this stuff when we review this issue. And then kind of word goes out there, and slowly over time, information and systems get incorporated into decision making, and then that filters outside when people need to do filings and ask for variances, and you know, but it kind of seems to me like you've got an orphan here, and you know, it kind of needs powerful parents.
Yeah, I agree. So part of the problem is we're having trouble filling our city manager's position. I'll just put it that way. We've had a few in the last few years. We've had more acting city managers than city managers for the last 3-4 years. So we still have an acting right now. An acting city manager is not going to grab onto any one topic. They're just trying to keep the lights on and keep things working day to day. So hopefully when we fill that for good, we'll have someone who we can convince that this is a necessary thing and devote some time to. I agree. That make it much more successful. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Who drives the forces in the city? If it's not the people, if they don't show up at meetings, is it large corporations or is it mostly Disney calls the shots on what happens?
You know, it's not. People always think it's Disney. It's really not them. It's just city staff. If we don't get input from people, we have to make decisions ourselves, and then the planning commission and city council will approve it. So, yeah, it's sad. I wish unfortunately, we have a lot of apathy, and that's typical of any city our size. I think just people are busy doing day-to-day stuff. They don't come to the general plan update meetings. They don't. Although I will say, we have council districts now, which is new for us. I don't know if Newport Beach has districts. You do. So we went through the whole districting process, deciding how the city's going to be carved up into 6 pieces, and we had a huge turnout for that. A lot of people came. They were very interested. They didn't want the big corporations to make those decisions. So that was the first time I've seen a lot of, just involved community members. So that was good to see.
That would have been a good time to introduce all of this to them because they showed up during.
Yeah, that was a little before we had any of this up. So.
Just clarification, you have district elections also, if I remember right now. You're required,
Yes.
district elects their representative, not citywide.
Right.
Yeah, and that was a fairly recent
Yes.
development, yeah. We currently do a general, everybody elects the individual district representatives.
Oh, interesting.
So do you like it the way you do it? 'Cause
Our districts?
if the people in the district vote for their district, they're not citywide.
I think the whole point of this was to get better representation. It's been white men for a long time, and that needs to change. So I think this is a step in that direction. I don't know if it's going to work because you tend to have people only caring about the hills or only caring about the very west of Anaheim with a lot of issues that do affect the whole city. So we need to take those into account. So It's an experiment, I think. We're going to see.
All right.
All right.
All right. Thank you much.